Time now for Focus, and today we're looking at one of the issues in today's presidential election in South Korea, and that's the deployment by the US of a controversial missile defense system. The government pushed for THAAD to be operational earlier than planned because of North Korea's advancing nuclear and missile threat. But China says the anti-missile system will destabilize the regional security balance. Justin McCurry reports.
The tranquility of Seongju, a village set in the mountains in central South Korea, was shattered when it became the most controversial military base in the country.
Illegal THAAD out of town.
Hundreds of police officers descend on Seongju to keep local protesters away from the THAAD missile defense system base.
You're blocking the road and preventing residents from returning to their homes, but you expect to wander freely around the village. How ironic is that?
The atmosphere is tense, but the villagers and their supporters vow to continue the fight against THAAD's deployment right on their doorstep.
The more I learn about THAAD, the more I realize that this is not just about a weapon. It's going to have a major effect on our national security and could even become a threat to peace in Northeast Asia. That's why I'm against it.
The protesters' prayers failed to prevent the deployment of the U.S. missile defense system at the end of April, way ahead of schedule. The equipment was brought in without warning and under the cover of darkness. Even still, large crowds gathered to oppose the deployment. The $1 billion system combines a powerful radar and missiles designed to intercept and destroy North Korean missiles in mid-flight. But it isn't only THAAD's potential to damage regional peace that concerns local farmers.
여기 보시면 벌들이 이렇게 날아다니잖아요. 5.6km까지.
I'm afraid that THAAD's electromagnetic waves disrupt the bees' ability to fly. If this is the case, bees won't be able to pollinate, which means we won't be able to grow any fruit.
그것이 뭐 저희가 얘기하는 게 아니라 미국의 육군 교본에 이미 나와 있는 거라는 거죠.
The U.S. and South Korea insist THAAD will play a purely defensive role against North Korean missiles. But its deployment has fomented a diplomatic crisis with China, which regards it as a threat to regional stability.
미국이 사드를 배치하려고 하는 지역은 바로 여기입니다. 그런데 사드가 여기 배치되면은 이 북한에서
This is where THAAD is stationed in South Korea. It can detect missile activity not only in North Korea, but also nuclear weapons in the eastern part and northeastern part of China.
탐지할 수 있기 때문에
This is why China and Russia regard THAAD as a threat to their national security.
안보상의 위협으로 간주하고 있습니다.
South Korea is coming under economic pressure from China, its biggest trading partner. About 2/3 of South Korean companies that do business in China have seen a decline in their turnover. New episodes of South Korean dramas have failed to appear on Chinese websites, and K-pop bands have been forced to cancel concert tours here. This shopping district in Seoul is usually packed with Chinese tourists, but not today.
I was a little bit worried about it because the first time I came to here and I applied the visa, and this is a little bit, I think it's a little bit difficult. Here we cannot see lots of Chinese people, so I think it's better for shopping.
The Chinese government is believed to have pressured travel agencies into canceling tours to South Korea. As a result, the number of Chinese tourists has fallen by 40%.
중국의 사드 보복의 영향을 뉴스를 통해서
When I first saw the news about the possible impact of China's reprisals against THAAD, I thought there'd be a drop in the number of tour groups.
그 이후로 그냥 여행사를 통해서
But the pressures also caused a drop in the number of tourists who travel to South Korea independently. There are practically no Chinese tourists here at the moment.
거의 전무하다고 볼 수 있습니다.
Against that backdrop, THAAD became a key issue during South Korea's presidential election, called after the impeachment of Park Geun-hye. The man expected to replace her, Moon Jae-In, has criticized the defense system's sudden deployment, but says only that he will review the system if he becomes president. After a decade of sanctions and isolation, Moon has also called for engagement with North Korea, a move that could put him on a diplomatic collision course with U.S. President Donald Trump.
For more on this, I'm now joined in the studio by Antoine Bondaz. He's a researcher at the Foundation for Strategic Research. He teaches at Paris' Sciences Po University and co-authored North Korea, an in-depth look at a totalitarian state. Hello, thank you very much for coming in. Now, we now know since that report was filed, of course, it has emerged. The exit polls have been released in South Korea, and it is looking like Moon Jae-In will be the next president. And he, as we just heard there, thought that THAAD was deployed too quickly. It was made operational a lot faster than planned. What do you make of that reaction of the current the government? Was it a disproportionate reaction to what North Korea has been doing in terms of all the tests it's carried out?
This is first an American response to what North Korea is doing these last few years, which is basically a speed up of his ballistic and nuclear programs, so like an unprecedented speed up of these two programs. The South Korean government last February 2016 decided actually to restart negotiation with the US government and then made a decision in July 2016. Since Moon Jae-In, the candidate, opposed it and say that it was up to the next administration actually to take the decision. What it shows, like, since it's already operational, it's going to be very, very difficult for the next president, President Moon, to move back on that decision. And it actually highlights the South Korean dilemma. On one side, how to increase South Korean security relying on the US alliance, and on the other side, how to improve relationship with China, what is still the first economic partner and the key for South Korean economic development.
So what is Moon going to have to do then to reassure China? If he can't roll back on the deployment, he's talked about reviewing it, it's not clear what that would mean, then what does he need to say to China?
It's going to be actually the key question that everyone in Washington is asking now. He cannot move back because it would actually endanger the strength of the ROC US alliance. So he will have, on the diplomatic level, to take steps towards China. Does it mean re-engaging a dialogue with North Korea? As he said, he is a pro-dialogue candidate. Does it mean having more military cooperation with China? Maybe, but at the end of the day, it's still very, very difficult for President Moon Jae-In to move back on that decision.
What about opposition from his own people? We saw in that report there have been quite a few protests in regards to that deployment. How significant have they been? How much of a thorn in his side could that be still?
On the democratic and liberal side of the political spectrum, the one that made Moon Jae-In become the new president, they are very much against the deployment of the THAAD. So it will be very hard for him actually to find a balance between how to reassure the US, how not to worry the Chinese, and how not to disappoint his own people in South Korea. So he will have to find, once again, a balance between security benefits and economic benefits from China.
Now, when China says that this deployment of THAAD is a threat to its own security, does it have a point?
There is actually three main reasons why China is opposed. The first one is because they believe that the THAAD deployment destabilizes the region. The second reason is because it strengthens actually the US web of alliances in the region. And the third one is like the monitoring and surveillance side of the THAAD, not the interception side, is actually endangering and weakening Chinese nuclear deterrence, not against South Korea, of course, but against the US.
So to an international audience, obviously the issue of North Korea in this South Korean election is a big one, but domestically, really the economy and corruption, big issues. Just how worried are, I mean, it's hard to talk of an average South Korean, but just how worried are they about North Korea and the potential for a strike?
You know, they've been living with a North Korean threat for the last 70 years. So for them, there is not a bigger threat now than it was 2 or 3 years ago. It's still a huge problem, of course, but unemployment, social inequalities are topping the next presidential agenda, at least on the domestic aspect.
Because unemployment is very high, and apparently we're seeing a higher turnout today from young people. How much of an issue for them? I mean, they've been majorly concerned with unemployment, perhaps more than what's going on outside of their borders.
Exactly, because the youth unemployment rate in South Korea is quite high for a key population that is highly educated. I mean, that the population that is going to university with very high level of degree and diploma. And there is also a generation gap with these older people with no degree, but a job, and these young people who have invested so much time, so much energy, and so much money into getting degrees, and with that, right now finding a job. So there is a huge, actually, social problems growing in South Korea, and it will be actually the key priority for the next president.
All right, thank you very much indeed, Antoine Bondaz, for coming in. Just a reminder that you teach at Sciences Po University, you're a researcher at the Foundation for Strategic Research, and you've written a book, of course, about North Korea. So let's go to, we're just seeing the front cover of your book there, North Korea, an in-depth look at a totalitarian state. Thank you, and thank you for watching. That's it for Focus. I'll be back shortly with a full news roundup for you. Stay tuned to France 24.